My girlfriend suddenly told me. She had 6 small beads implanted inside her. Blushing as she said it was meant to please me. The next day, I made soup and brought it to her office. To my surprise, I saw her in the arms of my good friend Henry Somerset. Henry wrapped his arm around her waist. His voice deep. Baby. You're such a good girl. You really did the implantation as I told my dumb friend. Even thought you did it for him. Do you reckon he'll lose his mind if he finds out you and I are getting married soon? My girlfriend's voice turned cold. This is nothing more than a marriage of convenience. I'm warning you not to let Chris find out. Henry chuckled and moved his hand downward. Don't worry. As long as you keep me happy, I won't get Chris into trouble. After hearing all this behind the door, my entire body went cold. Clutching my phone tightly, I recalled my boss saying he would transfer me to a subsidiary company a few days ago. I no longer hesitated and sent him a text. Boss. I'd like to be transferred to the subsidiary company in Hailboro City in 3 days. After getting my boss' reply, I slumped against the wall, drained of all energy. Henry Somerset's voice echoed in my ears again. Stop kissing me. If Chris runs into us later, you'll be in trouble. Oh, right. He still doesn't know you gave me the draft designs of dress and suit he made for his own wedding. I showed him the finished design, and he actually thought we just had the same taste. What a joke. He's so naive. It's almost hilarious. My face turned pale instantly. I had been with Jenna Rogers for 6 years. Everyone in her social circle knew me. They all knew I didn't care about fame or money. My only hope was that Jenna could have a bright future. Once she promised me she'd give me a grand wedding. I was so happy that I stayed up night after night, designing our wedding outfits myself, revising them again and again until I finalized the last version. But a while back, the drafts suddenly disappeared. I tore the place apart looking for them, but I found nothing. Jenna hugged me with a guilty expression. She cried as she said, maybe I accidentally threw them out with the trash. I'm sorry, Chris. The effort from countless hours of work and sleepless nights, gone just like that. Of course it hurt, but I still forced myself to comfort her, telling her it was okay, that I could just redo everything now. The truth hit me like a sledgehammer. My sketches hadn't ended up in the trash at all. She had handed them over as a gift to the man she was actually engaged to. Couldn't listen anymore. My steps faltered as I stumbled into the restroom. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Henry. Chris. When are you coming back? My fiancé stopped by and left. Otherwise I really would have loved to introduce you to. I stared at my reflection. My face was pale. I splashed cold water on myself, trying to clear my head. Slowly I walked back out. Henry was humming to himself when he saw me. He looked me straight in the eyes with a knowing smirk. What took you so long? Did you see my fiancée? She's gorgeous, isn't she? I met his gaze, and in that instant I understood. He had done all of this on purpose. He wanted me to see everything, and to crush whatever feelings I still had left. However, he seemed to forget something. Jenna and I had been publicly dating for 6 years. Even if we couldn't make it to the end, I wasn't some third wheel hiding in the dark. I swallowed my anger, forced a smile, and said, great. You two look good together. I hope you're happy. After saying that, I turned around and walked away. Behind me, Henry shouted smugly, so what if you were together for years? Being able to get a woman to marry you, that's what really counts. She's my wife now. You'd better stay away from her. I didn't slow down. I straightened my back and forced myself to stay calm as I went home. Jenna got there before me. When she saw me come in, she immediately smiled and opened her arms, like she always did. Honey. You're home. I instinctively stepped aside. Her arms froze in midair, surprise flashing across her face. I glanced at the skirt she was wearing. It wasn't the one she had worn when she left that morning. Looks like you changed your skirt. The confusion in Jenna's eyes instantly turned into guilt. She smiled and explained. I spilled coffee on myself today, so my assistant helped me change. Once it's cleaned, I'll bring it back and keep it properly. You designed that dress for me yourself? Was it really coffee? Or was it ruined while she was fooling around with Henry? The disgust I had barely managed to suppress on the way home surged back. I almost exposed her lie right then and there. Still, I was leaving in 2 days. What was the point of tearing everything apart now? Okay, do whatever you want. Jenna looked at me with tender concern. You seem unhappy today. Who made you upset? I'll deal with them for you. Or how about I take you out for a nice dinner to cheer you up? After 6 years together, we knew each other well. When something was on my mind, he could always tell. I used to fall for her gentle, coaxing routine every time. No matter how upset I was, she could smooth it over with a few words. But now my heart felt completely still. Before I could answer, her phone rang. We were standing close. Enough that I clearly saw the caller's name on the screen. Husband. There was no need to guess who it was. It had to be Henry. After she hung up, he said apologetically, Chris, something urgent came up at work. Wait for me at home. I'll bring you your favorite cake when I get back. Jenna didn't wait for my response. She hurried out the door. I forced a bitter smile and silently began packing up everything in the house that belonged to me. When even 3 suitcases weren't enough, my eyes filled with tears. Over the past 6 years, whenever I felt down, Jenna always found ways to comfort me. Sometimes it was something small, like street food from a random stall. Other times it was expensive watches or carefully chosen ties. All those little moments added up. There were so many that I couldn't even count them anymore. For 6 years, everyone believed she loved me wholeheartedly. I believed it, too. When did that start to change? Was it when the clothes I bought her, the cups I made by hand, the jewelry I carefully selected began disappearing one by one? Was it when she grew closer and closer to Henry, lying again and again about working late, meetings and business trips? Or was it when she told me she loved me and promised me a grand wedding, while secretly sleeping with Henry repeatedly, until she ended up marrying him and turning me into the clueless third wheel? I had thought of asking her about it on the way home. There were 1,000 questions on my mind. In the end, I held back. There was no need anymore. It was over. I made a phone call. I'm leaving the country in 3 days. On Henry's wedding day. Arrange for a courier to deliver a bouquet. Write this on the card. Wishing Miss Jenna and Mr. Henry a lifetime of happiness. Sign it with my name. You don't have to tell them anything. Consider it a special surprise for me as a friend. After everything was arranged, I received another message from Henry. He sent me an address and taunted me. Tomorrow I'm rehearsing the wedding with my wife. I've got a gift for you tonight. The question is, do you dare to come get it? I hesitated for only a few seconds before deciding to go alone. The moment I stepped into the bar, I ran into one of Jenna's close friends. She was drunk, leaning against the door outside a private room, and catching her breath. She squinted at me and grinned. Why do you look so much like Jenna's boyfriend? No way. I'm not seeing things. Am I? She laughed again. Jenna's really something. She's about to get married and is still acting like this. Isn't she worried about messing it up? We don't dare say anything in case we let it slip out. I stared at her slumped figure by the door. My heart sank so everyone knew. Everyone knew she was marrying Henry. Except me. 6 years of my life turned out to be a ridiculous joke. I stood quietly outside the room. Through the crack in the door I saw Jenna. The same woman who had said she was working late. Sitting in Henry's lap, drinking one glass after another. Henry smiled broadly, his arm tight around her waist. They looked inseparable, like a couple deep in love. Someone suddenly asked, Jenna, are you really going to keep this from Chris forever? Isn't that kind of messed up? Jenna froze. Her expression darkened instantly. I'm warning you. None of you is allowed to say a word to Chris. If anyone does, you know exactly what I'll do. She frowned impatiently and added. This is just a marriage for power. Even if Chris finds out, he won't blame me. I'll explain it to him, but not now. She downed her drink in one go, as if trying to drown the unease gnawing at her. Henry seemed to sense my presence outside. The smile on his face only grew wider. As if deliberately provoking me. He reached up and touched Jenna's face. Honey, you act like you still love Chris right in front of me. You know I get jealous. She laughed softly. Such a jealous man. Want a kiss? She tilted her head up and kissed him deeply. I watched the scene numb. The feeling that had been torturing me for days. Finally, let loose. We had weathered so much together once. Supporting each other through everything. Yet now we had ended up walking away from each other completely. It was ironic. I knew Henry was doing this on purpose. Since I was already here, I wasn't going to leave empty-handed. I silently took out my phone and recorded the nauseating scene. When I finished, I turned to leave. Just then, Jenna swayed as she stood up. She seemed to have had enough kissing and suddenly remembered me. She muttered softly, all right. Heading back. I need to buy Chris a cake. You guys have fun. My steps faltered for a moment. But I didn't turn around. I walked straight out. That night, Jenna didn't come home. And I never saw that cake. My phone was filled with photo after photo. All sent by Henry. Intimate shots of him and Jenna together. 2 days before I left, my alarm went off. I didn't alert anyone. Wearing a mask. I quietly entered the hotel. Henry and Jenna were rehearsing their wedding. They were wearing the wedding dress and suit I had designed. I watched as they walked step by step across the stage. Guided by the officiant. I watched them gaze into each other's eyes and place rings. Which symbolized their love for eternity. On each other's fingers. I watched as they cried. Overwhelmed with emotion, and kissed without restraint. At that moment, my eyes welled with tears. I lowered my head and rubbed at my eyes. To ease the sting. Staff member beside me seemed to find someone to talk to. And said excitedly, isn't it incredibly touching? I never thought there'd be real love in a wealthy family. They must truly love each other. You can't fake that kind of look in someone's eyes. I forced a smile. Yeah. They must really love each other. Jenna seemed to sense something and suddenly looked in my direction. Instinctively, I lowered the brim of my hat and dropped my gaze. Henry followed her line of sight. A smug smile appeared on his face. What is it, Jenna? Did you see someone you know? She paused for a second before shaking her head. No. I must have been mistaken. I lifted my head again and looked at their wedding attire. Guess that dream came true after all. I murmured. Although the man wearing the groom suit and going through the wedding ceremony wasn't me, at least the clothes themselves were designed by me. In a way, it was a belated answer. And a barely possible ending. For 6 years of youth and wholehearted love. After the rehearsal ended, Henry blocked my way outside the dressing room. He looked me up and down with a sarcastic smile. After everything I've shown you these past few days, you still won't give up. Maybe Jenna loved you once. But if she really loved you, would she be marrying me? Even sleeping with me? You're not from the same world as us. I only befriended you before because you were Jenna's boyfriend. Now take the hint and get lost. Stay as far away from us as possible. With that, he turned around and walked away in disdain. Just then, my phone rang. It was Jenna. I didn't answer. Soon she sent me a message. Chris, I worked too late last night. So I didn't come home. I didn't want to disturb you. Another message followed. I have a last-minute business trip these next 2 days. I'll be back the day after tomorrow. Don't be mad at me. I'll bring you your favorite cake when I get back. After reading the messages, a wave of bleak sadness washed over me. She really went to great lengths to plan her wedding, while carefully lying to me and stringing me along. My eyes turned red, but no tears fell. Someone who betrayed me wasn't worth my grief. I didn't reply. I blocked her number and deleted all her contact information. When I got home, I gathered the screenshots of Henry's taunts and the video of them kissing, bundled everything together, and sent it to the courier scheduled to deliver the flowers. The next day, I added a note. Please play this video in front of the bride. Thank you. On the wedding day, I wheeled my suitcase toward the airport. At the venue, Henry greeted guests with a radiant smile, while Jenna kept glancing at her phone. I hadn't replied to any of her messages. My phone stayed unreachable. An unexplainable unease crept into her chest. But she couldn't leave. All she could do was wait anxiously for the ceremony to end. Finally, the officiant announced the start of the wedding. The bride made her entrance. The courier stepped forward with a bouquet and handed it to Jenna. Henry was in the middle of his speech. Jenna smiled as she accepted the flowers. But the moment she read the card, all color drained from her face. The courier spoke at just the right time. Miss, there's also a video. The gentleman who sent the flowers asked me to play it for you. He congratulated you on finding the person you'll spend your life with. He wishes you happiness. And he also wishes that you two will never meet again in this life. The air in the venue was thick with the scent of lilies and expensive perfume, a cloying sweetness that made the silence following the courier's words feel suffocating. Jenna's fingers trembled as she held the card. Wishes that you two will never meet again in this life. The courier, a young man who clearly didn't get paid enough for this level of drama, tapped his phone screen. Ma'am? The video? No, Jenna whispered, her voice cracking. Panic clawed at her throat. She looked at the crowd. Her parents were there, beaming. Henry's business partners were watching. Don't play. But Henry, arrogant and high on his own victory, snatched the phone from the courier. He laughed, a booming sound that echoed off the vaulted ceiling. Let's see what the loser has to say. Probably a tearful goodbye speech. He cast the video to the massive screens behind the altar, intended for a montage of their childhood photos. The screen flickered to life. It wasn't a speech. It was the dimly lit interior of the bar from 2 nights ago. The audio was crisp, cutting through the wedding hall. Honey, you act like you still love Chris right in front of me. Henry's voice on the recording was slurred, dripping with malice. Such a jealous man. Want a kiss? Jenna's voice followed, light and teasing. The crowd gasped. It wasn't just the cheating, it was the date stamp in the corner of the video. 2 days ago. While she was publicly engaged to Henry, and publicly living with Chris. Then came the kicker. The camera angle shifted in the video as Chris walked away, capturing Henry's voice one last time. So what? It's a marriage for power. She's a useful idiot. The video cut to black. The silence in the hall was absolute. Jenna stood frozen, the blood draining from her face until she looked like a wax figure. She wasn't looking at the screen, she was looking at the phone in her hand, frantically dialing a number. The number you have dialed is not in service. She dialed again. The number you have dialed. He's gone, she muttered, the realization hitting her harder than the humiliation. He actually left. Henry's face had turned a violacious shade of red. He wasn't embarrassed by the affair, men like him didn't feel shame about conquests, but he was furious at the loss of control. He grabbed Jenna's wrist, hard. Turn that off, he roared at the tech crew, then glared at Jenna. Smile. Now. He left me, Jenna said, her voice rising to a shriek. Chris left me. Shut up. Henry hissed, dragging her toward the officiant. We have a merger to sign. I don't care if he's dead. You say I do, or I destroy your father's company by morning. Jenna looked at the man she was about to marry. She felt the 6 beads implanted under her skin, foreign and uncomfortable, aching with a dull throb. She had done that to please him. She had humiliated herself to secure a future. And now, looking at Henry's snarling face, she realized that the grand wedding Chris had promised her, the one built on love and late-night street food, was the only thing that had ever been real. Mechanically, tears streaming down her face, ruining her makeup, she turned to the priest. I do, she sobbed. It was the most miserable wedding Hailboro City had ever seen. 3 months later. Hailboro City lived up to its name. It was a place of steel, glass, and perpetual drizzle. It was a stark contrast to the sunny warmth of the city Chris had left behind, and that was exactly why he liked it. Chris stood in his new office, overlooking the gray skyline. He had thrown himself into his work at the subsidiary. No longer the boyfriend of Jenna Rogers, he was just Chris, the brooding, intense design director who worked 16-hour days and produced brilliance. His phone buzzed. It was his assistant, Sarah. Director, the samples for the autumn gala are here. Bring them in. Chris didn't date. He didn't go out. He went from the office to his stark, modern apartment and back. The pain of the betrayal hadn't vanished, it had calcified. It sat in his chest, a heavy, cold weight that kept him grounded. He used it. Every sketch he drew was sharper, darker, more elegant. The soft, romantic lines of the wedding dress he had designed for Jenna were gone. His new collection was called Severance. Sharp cuts, high collars, deep crimsons and blacks. It was aggressive, protective armor for the wearer. Sarah walked in, holding a garment bag. She hesitated. "Sir, there's a letter for you." It was forwarded from the main office. Personal. Chris took the envelope. He recognized the handwriting instantly. Jenna. He stared at it for a long moment. He didn't feel the urge to cry anymore. He just felt exhausted. He walked over to the shredder, fed the unopened envelope into the teeth, and watched Jenna's apologies turn into confetti. "We need to change the fabric on the lapels," Chris said calmly, turning back to Sarah. "Silk is too soft. Use leather." Meanwhile, in the marital home of Mr. and Mrs. Somerset, the air was stagnant. Jenna sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her reflection. She had lost weight. Her eyes were hollow. "Stop moping," Henry threw his tie onto the chair. He smelled of whiskey and another woman's perfume. "We have the charity dinner tonight. Wear the blue dress." "I don't want to go," Jenna whispered. Henry laughed. He walked over, gripping her chin and tilting her head up. "You think you have a choice? You're Mrs. Somerset. You're the trophy. Shine, Jenna." He let go of her face with a shove. "By the way, your father called. He needs another loan. I told him he'd have to wait. Maybe if you're extra obedient tonight, I'll reconsider." Jenna flinched. The power dynamic she had thought she could manipulate had swallowed her whole. She thought she was marrying for convenience, that she could keep Chris on the side and Henry in her pocket. She had been so naive. Henry was a predator. She opened her drawer. Hidden at the back, beneath layers of lingerie she hated wearing, was a small sketchbook, the only thing she had managed to save from the trash when she threw out Chris's things. It contained a sketch of a small house with a garden. "Our future," Chris had written in the margins. She traced the lines with her finger. She had tried to contact him 1,000 times. New numbers, emails, letters. Silence. The silence was louder than Henry's shouting. It was a void where her heart used to be. She realized then that Chris hadn't just left the city. He had excised her from his existence. 2 years passed. The fashion world was buzzing about a rising star in Hailboro. The subsidiary brand, Eclat, had overtaken the parent company in revenue, largely due to the singular vision of its creative director, Christopher Vance. The annual International Design Gala was being held in the capital. It was the event of the decade. Jenna stood in the VIP section, clutching a glass of champagne. She was wearing a dress Henry had bought her, gaudy, overly revealing, and expensive. She looked beautiful, but brittle, like glass about to shatter. "Henry, can we leave?" she asked. "Shut up," Henry muttered, scanning the room for investors. "I heard the director of Eclat is here. We need to poach him. If we get him, our stock triples." The lights dimmed. The runway show began. It was breathtaking. The models walked to a heavy, industrial beat. The clothes were magnificent, powerful, architectural, imposing. The final piece was a tuxedo, not unlike the one Chris had designed for his own wedding, but evolved. It wasn't hopeful, it was commanding. The applause was thunderous. The announcer's voice boomed. "Please welcome the designer, Christopher Vance." Jenna dropped her glass. It shattered on the marble floor, but no one noticed over the applause. Chris walked out. He looked different. The boyish softness was gone. He was leaner, his hair styled back, wearing a black turtleneck and a tailored suit of his own design. He didn't smile. He just nodded to the crowd, an air of untouchable authority around him. Henry's jaw dropped. That's the loser." Jenna couldn't breathe. The world narrowed down to him. As Chris turned to leave the stage, his eyes swept across the VIP section. For a split second, his gaze locked with Jenna's. She waited for the spark. The anger. The hurt. Anything. But there was nothing. His eyes slid over her as if she were a piece of furniture, barely registering her presence before moving on to the next person. He turned and walked off stage. That indifference destroyed her more than a slap in the face ever could. The after-party was lavish. Chris stood in a corner, sipping sparkling water, surrounded by editors and buyers. He was polite, charming, and utterly distant. "Chris. The voice came from behind him. He didn't flinch. He finished his conversation with the editor of Vogue before slowly turning around. Jenna stood there. Henry was nowhere to be seen, likely schmoozing or drinking. Mrs. Somerset, Chris said. His voice was calm, baritone, unfamiliar. Chris, please, Jenna's eyes welled up. Don't call me that. It's your name, isn't it? I made a mistake, she rushed the words out, desperate to bridge the gap. Chris, I made a terrible mistake. Henry, he's a monster. He treats me like an object. I think about you every day. I still have the sketch of the house. We can start over. I can divorce him. I have dirt on his company. We can. Chris held up a hand, stopping her mid-sentence. Jenna, he said. He didn't sound angry. He sounded bored. You seem to be under the impression that I'm still the man you left in that apartment. I know I hurt you, but... You didn't just hurt me. You killed that version of me, Chris said, taking a sip of his water. And I'm grateful. Jenna blinked, confused. Grateful? If you hadn't showed me exactly who you were, I would have spent my life designing mediocre clothes for a woman who didn't respect me. I would have been happy with scraps. You freed me to become this. He gestured to the room, to his success. But I love you, she whispered, a tear finally falling. Chris stepped closer, leaning in. Jenna's heart raced. She thought he was going to kiss her. You don't love anyone, Jenna, he said softly, his voice devoid of warmth. You love how people make you feel. You loved me because I was a safe servant. You loved Henry because he was a powerful master. Now that the master bites, you want the servant back. But the servant is gone. Well. Henry Somerset blundered into the conversation, his face flushed with alcohol. He wrapped a possessive arm around Jenna's waist, squeezing hard enough to make her wince. Look who it is. The tailor. Henry sneered. Nice show, Chris. Though I see you're still hung up on my wife. Chris looked at Henry's arm around Jenna. He looked at the fear in Jenna's eyes. Actually, Mr. Somerset, Chris said, checking his watch. I was just leaving. But before I go, you should probably check the news. Henry frowned. What? My company, Eclat, Chris said smoothly. We just acquired the majority stake in the textile supplier your family relies on. As of 10 minutes ago, I'm your principal vendor. Henry went pale. That's impossible. Business is business, Chris shrugged. I'm raising the prices by 40% effective tomorrow. I hear your cash flow is tight. Good luck with that. Chris set his glass down on a passing waiter's tray. He looked at Jenna one last time. She looked trapped, small, and pathetic in her expensive dress. Goodbye, Jenna, he said. He walked away, through the crowd that parted for him, out the double doors, and into the cool night air. He didn't look back. The collapse of the Somerset Empire wasn't immediate, but it was inevitable. With the supply chain squeezed by Chris, Henry's business began to hemorrhage money. The stress made Henry more volatile. The abuse at home escalated from emotional to physical. Jenna tried to leave, but she had no money of her own, and her father's company had gone bankrupt 6 months prior, dragged down by Henry's failing investments. She was trapped in the golden cage she had built. Every time she opened a magazine, she saw Chris. Chris in Paris. Chris in Milan. Chris with a beautiful, brilliant architect named Elena, a woman who looked at him not with ownership, but with partnership. One rainy afternoon, 2 years after the gala, Jenna sat in a small coffee shop, the kind she used to refuse to go to because it was cheap. She was wearing old clothes. She had finally divorced Henry, but she had left with nothing but the clothes on her back to escape his rage. She scrolled through her phone. Breaking news, Christopher Vance weds architect Elena Ross in a private ceremony in Tuscany. There were photos. Chris was laughing, a genuine, head-thrown-back laugh that Jenna hadn't seen in years. He looked light. Free. Jenna zoomed in on the photo. The suit he wore was white. Simple. Elegant. And the dress Elena wore, it wasn't the one Chris had designed for Jenna. It was something new. Something better. Jenna put the phone down. She looked out the window at the gray street. She remembered the 6 beads. She remembered the lies. She remembered the coffee spill excuse. I ruined it, she whispered to the empty chair across from her. She had traded a man who would have given her the world for a man who wanted to own her, and in the end, she had neither. 5 years later. Chris sat on the terrace of his home, watching the sunset. Elena was inside, playing with their daughter. He had achieved everything he ever wanted. Fame, fortune, a family built on trust. His phone buzzed. An unknown number. He usually ignored them, but for some reason, he answered. Hello. There was silence on the other end. Just the sound of breathing, shaky and shallow. Hello. Chris asked again. Chris. The voice was raspy, aged beyond its years. Chris paused. He knew the voice. But it felt like a memory from a different lifetime, like a character from a book he had finished reading long ago. Jenna, he stated. Not a question. I just wanted to hear your voice, she stammered. I saw your latest interview. You look happy. I am. I'm working at a bakery now, she said, a desperate note of hope in her voice. It's near your old apartment. Do you remember? The one we... Jenna, Chris cut her off gently. There was no malice left in him. Just a profound sense of closure. Why are you calling? I don't know, she sobbed. I guess I'm still waiting for you to come home. Chris looked back at the house, where Elena was laughing, holding their child up to the window to wave at him. I am home, Chris said. He hung up the phone. He blocked the number. He stood up, walked into the warm light of his living room, and closed the door against the cold, leaving the past exactly where it belonged, outside, in the dark, forgotten.